Hey there everyone, Ramesh here. In this video I'm going to talk about Java Developer Roadmap or the learning path for Java Developer. Well, if you are Java beginner and wanted to become a Java developer, then you are in a right place. In this video I'm going to talk about what are the skills that you learn to become a Java developer. Alright guys, without further ado, let's get started. First we'll look into the core Java development, and then Java EE development, and then we'll look into the tools for Java development, and then we'll look into the commonly used utility libraries for Java development. So let's begin with core Java development. So here are the things that I have listed here that you can learn to work on core Java development. Let's begin with core Java. So core Java is a base for all other Java EE frameworks. Make sure that you have a good foundation in core Java. So here I have listed some of the commonly used core Java topics that you can take a note. Java basics, so you should have a good understanding of JVM, JDK and JRE and how they works, and arrays, and loops, control statements, variables and access modifiers. So these are the Java basics that you should learn first, and then you can learn OOPS concepts, string handlings, generics, collections framework, multi-threading and concurrency, exception handling, and of course you should learn JDBC to connect to different databases. And Java 8 features, you should learn Lambda expression, Java 8 stream APIs, functional interfaces. So these are the very important Java 8 features as a Java programmer you should learn. And file IO, so if you want to work with files and directories, then you should learn file IO. So these are the commonly used topics in core Java, so you can take a note of it. Next, move to the data structures and algorithms. Well, data structures and algorithms are the building blocks for any programming language. As a programmer, you should have a good understanding of data structures and algorithms. So here I have listed some of the commonly used data structures and algorithms. Data structures like array, linked list, stack, queue, binary tree, heap, graph, and algorithms like sorting algorithms and searching algorithms. So as a programmer, you should have a good understanding of data structures and algorithms as well. So while writing a logic, you will make use of these data structures and algorithms. Well, next is Java testing. So we have JUnit framework and Mockito in Java to write a JUnit test cases. You may not get a question in interviews on these JUnit framework and Mockito, but make sure that you will learn JUnit framework and Mockito in order to write a JUnit test cases. So whenever you write a logic in your Java projects, then you should create a JUnit test cases to test your logic. Alright guys, so JUnit in Mockito is very essential skill for Java developer in case of testing your Java development. Next is relational databases and NoSQL databases. So as a Java developer, you should have good understanding of databases as well. So here I have listed some of the common databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, MS SQL Server. So these are the commonly used relational databases that you can have a look into. As a Java developer, you should know these commonly used relational databases. And here I have listed some of the NoSQL databases like MongoDB and Elasticsearch. So these are the popular NoSQL databases that companies prefer to use as a databases. So there are a lot of NoSQL databases out there like CouchDB, Cassandra and Solar. So these are the commonly used databases I have listed over here. And next is design patterns. So as a Java developer, you should know the commonly used design patterns so that you can make use of these design patterns in your Java project or Java development. So whenever you develop architecture for your Java application, then you will make use of design patterns like application level design patterns, architecture level design patterns. Alright, and yeah, so here is a gang up for design patterns. So have a look into all the gang up for design patterns, because these are the commonly used design patterns As a Java developer, you should know all the commonly used design patterns. Next is desktop application development. So if you want to develop a desktop based application, then you should learn either Swing or Java Apex. So Swing is kind of a legacy library, and Java Apex is a modern library that you can use to develop a desktop applications. Well, once you are familiar with core Java, JDBC and relational databases, then you can create a desktop application using either Swing or Java Apex. So these are the things you can learn to work on core Java development. Let's move to Java EE development. So here are the technologies that I have listed that you can learn to work on Java EE development. So JSP, Servlet, JPA, JAX RS, JAX W. So these are the technologies in Java EE development. So JSP Servlet we use to develop our web applications, and JPA is a standard Java persistence API which we can use to connect to the databases and to perform different operations. And JPA is just a specification or a standard library, but there are a lot of implementations out there like Hibernate, Eclipse Link. And JAX RS is a standard API for developing REST APIs, and we have a Jersey framework and REST-AG framework. So these are the two popular frameworks that implements JAX RS API, and we can use Jersey framework or REST-AG framework to develop REST APIs. And JAX WS is the API that we can use to develop a SOAP web services. Alright, next is Spring framework. Well, Spring framework is very popular Java EE framework which we can use to simplify our Java EE development, and we use Spring framework to develop enterprise applications. Spring framework is become one of the essential skill for Java developers, so make sure that you will learn Spring framework. And let me tell you what are the things you need to learn in Spring framework. You should begin with Spring core module. So you should learn Spring core fundamentals like dependency injection, AOP, Spring IOC, and beans, lifecycle of beans. So all these fundamentals you should learn. So once you are familiar with Spring core fundamentals, then you can learn Spring MUC. So Spring MUC module which we can use to develop web applications and RESTful web services. So once you are familiar with Spring core fundamentals and Spring MUC flow, then you can learn Spring Boot. So Spring Boot is very popular nowadays for developing RESTful web services and microservices because it simplifies a lot of Spring configuration and the boilerplate code that is required for Spring configuration. So once you are familiar with Spring core fundamentals like dependency injection, Spring IOC, AOP, and Spring Beans life cycles, and all the Spring core basics, then you should learn Spring Boot. Don't directly jump into Spring Boot because Spring Boot internally uses auto configuration and opinionated approach to configure the configurations. So initially you will feel very easy, but when things get complex, then you may not able to understand Spring Boot internals. So make sure you learn Spring core basics, and then you can learn Spring Boot. Spring Boot has taken Spring framework to the next level. It has drastically reduced the configuration and setup time required for Spring based projects. You can set up Spring project with almost zero configuration and start building the things that actually matter to your application. And Spring Boot is one of the essential skill for Java developers nowadays. Next is Spring Security. Well, Spring Security provides authentication and authorization features, and Spring Security is very popular module to secure our Spring web applications and RESTful APIs. So make sure that you will learn about Spring Security. And Spring Security is one of the popular security framework in Java, and it provides out of the box authentication and authorization features. And next is Spring Data JPA. Spring Data JPA which we can use to reduce a lot of boilerplate code that is required to develop a DAO layer. And Spring Data JPA internally uses Hibernate as a default JPA provider. Alright guys, so if you are developing Spring based applications, that I highly suggest you guys to use Spring Data JPA, because we can create repositories and we can get a full CRUD operations on entities in Spring Data JPA. Spring Data JPA, it reduces a lot of boilerplate code that is required to develop a DAO layer. So I highly suggest you guys to use Spring Data JPA. And there are a lot of other Spring modules out there to work with different technologies. If you want to use Elasticsearch in your Spring application, then you can use Spring Data Elasticsearch module. Or if you want to work with Cassandra, then you can use a Spring Data Cassandra module. So there are a lot of modules out there in a Spring ecosystem that you can make use of. So these are the commonly used modules that I have listed over here. So Spring framework and the modules within a Spring framework are very popular nowadays to work with different applications. So next skill is microservices. Microservices is one of the essential skill for Java developers nowadays. Microservice architecture is the latest hot trend now, and many organizations prefer microservices architecture and want to deploy them in cloud environments like AWS. So Spring Boot and Spring Cloud is a great combination to develop microservices based applications. So Spring Boot we can use to quickly develop REST APIs, and we can make a jar out of it, and we can deploy a jar in different Docker containers. And Spring Cloud provides a lot of features which we can use to build cloud native microservices. All right, so Spring Cloud offers a lot of architecture level patterns that we can use to develop microservices applications. Alright guys, in Java community you should use Spring Boot and Spring Cloud to develop a microservices based architecture and projects. Alright, great. And next we have Hibernate. Hibernate is one of the popular ORM framework. So Hibernate is the most popular JPA implementation, and we can use Hibernate to directly map relational object into a relational database table. So these are the technologies that you can learn to work on Java EE development. Now let's take a look into the tools for Java development. Well, we have Apache Maven and Gradle. So these are the two popular build tools and dependency management tool in Java community. So you can learn either Maven or Gradle to work on Java projects. We have a Git. So Git is very popular version control system that you can learn and you can use in your Java project as a version control system. And you can learn Jenkins. You can use Jenkins for continuous integration and continuous delivery of your project. And next is Eclipse and IntelliJ IDEA and NetBeans. So these are the IDEs. In fact, these are the popular IDEs that you can learn to build a Java project. So next is Docker. So Docker is one of the essential skills for Java developer nowadays. So whenever you want to deploy your application on cloud, then you can use Docker to deploy your services and different containers in Docker. And Jira is must known tool for Java developers who are working in IT companies which uses agile methodologies. Jira is basically used for bug tracking, issue tracking, and to manage project. And SVN is also a version control system. So either you can use Git or SVN as a version control for your project. AWS is also an essential skill nowadays to work on cloud. So make sure that you will also have a look into the AWS. And Kubernetes is a very important skill as a deployment point of view from DevOps. Alright guys, so make sure that you will learn all these tools to become a Java developer. And here I have listed some of the commonly used utility libraries for Java development. So make sure that you check out Goa library, Apache Commons libraries, Jackson JSON libraries, Google JSON libraries, and logging libraries, HTTP libraries, XML parsing libraries, and collection libraries. So these are the commonly used utility libraries for Java development. So as a Java developer, you should have a look into all these commonly used utility libraries. Alright guys, so these are the technology, tools and libraries are very important for Java development. So as a Java developer, you should begin with core Java development. So within a core Java, learn core Java basics and fundamentals, and then data structures, algorithms and testing frameworks, databases, design patterns. Alright, and learn the desktop application libraries, development libraries like Swing or Java Apex, and then move on to Java EE development. You should learn Spring Framework and Spring Boot, and also microservices, and learn the tools that are required for Java development, and then learn the utility libraries for Java development. Alright guys, so check out all these tools, technologies and libraries for Java development. So I'm damn sure that if you learn all these tools, technologies and libraries, you should become a good Java developer. Alright guys, so these are the topics that I want to discuss pretty much in this video. I hope this video is useful for you guys. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys in next video.